Hi, welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 228, and today's date is December 2nd, 2013, and the title of this episode is Alert, UN Sealed Evidence Could Be Used to Strike Syria. Before I get started, I just want to let everyone know this site was down earlier this morning. What happened was it seemed like there was some type of hit or something, and the CPU utilization skyrocketed, and under the terms of service with the hosting company, when it reaches a certain point, they shut down the site, and they are looking into it. I haven't changed anything on the site, getting the same amount of traffic, but the site went down, the forum went down because it's all connected to the same thing. And I proved to them that I didn't do anything, and it was coming from an outside. They located the IP addresses that it was coming from, and they blocked them. And why this happened, I have no clue. And they're supposedly looking into trying to understand what exactly happened at this time. So if you were trying to get on the site earlier today, that is what happened at that time. Now, what do we know about Syria? We understand back in August they were using the false flag event. This was the central bankers, U.S. government, to get into Syria because their main goal is to oust Assad. They do not want him there. They want to replace him with a puppet. They want to replace Assad's government with a puppet government so they can implement the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. And yes, they still want to do this in Iran. Nothing has changed. The goal is exactly the same. The only reason they're talking about nuclear weapons is because the United States will not go into a country that has nuclear weapons. That's why we don't go into North Korea. That's why all the other Middle Eastern nations that the United States went into and invaded, like Libya, Lebanon, Iraq, all did not have nuclear capabilities, and we went in there, replaced the governments with puppet governments, put them back onto the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. And they are doing the same thing, and this is why they are using the strategy of having Iran stop doing what they're doing in the nuclear realm so they can formulate their plan to get into Iran. And we can see what is happening in Syria right now. The UN has come out that they have some type of sealed evidence that might allow the UN forces to go in, just like they did in Libya, and oust Assad. And this is the entire plan, is a backdoor approach to what they were trying to do. But let's get into the economic collapse news right now. What we are seeing right now in Germany, and in my past reports, I reported that the unemployment is continually rising, and right now, telecom giant in Germany is going to cut 6,000 jobs, and we have to remember that Siemens in Germany is also cutting 15,000 jobs. So we're going to see their unemployment going up even more. The Eurozone is hit with a huge unemployment percentage. That is continually rising. The youth unemployment is skyrocketing in the countries, and the youth are the next phase of bringing in revenue. And right now, none of these countries have the youth to bring in the revenue, and the countries are having a very tough time sustaining their debt. And we understand that all this debt, high unemployment, cannot be sustained. But again, they're telling us that they're coming out of this recession in the Eurozone. Things are getting better. They told us things were getting better in Greece after the first bailout, and here they are looking for the third one already. So we know this doesn't work. What else do we know? Well, here in America, we understand the unemployment numbers are completely manipulated. The Fed completely controls the market, and they need to manipulate everything to make sure that everyone believes that the economy is getting better. And they need everyone to look at the stock market. We see the Dow at 16,000, S&P is reaching, 1,800, NASDAQ around 4,000, and they're suppressing gold to make everyone believe that things are getting better. But in my report, this must have been about a month ago or so, I reported that the automakers were channel stuffing, and now we learn that this channel stuffing is highest since 2005. And for those who don't know what channel stuffing is, it is a deceptive business practice used by a company to inflate its sales and earnings figures by deliberately sending retailers along its distribution channel more products than they are able to sell to the public. And this is what the auto manufacturers are doing right now. They are giving all the dealers tons and tons of cars. And right now they have a 76-day supply of automobiles sitting on their lot. And this is the highest since 2005. And they're also giving loans to all subprime people who have no credit or bad credit. They're not even doing checks anymore. They're just giving you a car. This is an indicator that things are not well and car sales are not what they seem. So the manufacturers are saying, oh, look, we got rid of, all of this and we're producing many, many cars. And it is an illusion to make people believe that things are going well. But we know they are not. And right now, right now, it's a 76-day supply that's sitting on the dealers' lots, and the last time it was this high was in 2005 when it was a 77-day supply sitting on the lots. And we know what happened to the car manufacturers at that time. They were looking for bailouts during 2008. Okay, now, we understand, and I've said this in my other reports, that 1.3 million Americans are going to lose their extended unemployment come this December 28th at the end of the year. And the government has a decision to make to extend it again or have these people fall off the labor force. And what this means is if they do not extend unemployment, these people will no longer be counted in the labor force. They will be those people who dropped off. So this means that if the unemployment is not extended, we could see a fall of 0.8% on unemployment. So if unemployment is 7.3% right now, subtract 0.8% from that number, and we're down in the sixes. This is where the Fed wants to be in order to taper. So how do we know that the false flag event and some type of an event that will occur in the U.S., if they go ahead without extending this unemployment, everything is ready and set up for the false flag event to occur. And what they will do, and I've said this many times in other reports, is they will be ready to launch this multi-pronged type of event in America. It will consist of a cyber attack, a chemical weapon, or a dirty nuclear bomb from Iran, the chemical attack from Syria, because we have to remember CNN already reported that Assad has hidden a cache of chemical weapons that the UN doesn't know about. And I find it very interesting that a U.S. vessel will be taking Syria's chemical weapons out to sea to dispose of them. Is that the hidden cache that they might put aside? We don't know. But it's very interesting that U.S. is going to handle this part of the destruction. So if the government at this point decides not to extend the unemployment, these people fall off of the unemployment calculation, and it will be added to what it was like 900,000 people that fell off in October. So add another 1.3 million to those people, and we're looking at 2 million people that fell off of the unemployment. And this will make the unemployment come down to around 6.5% or so percent, or 6.6%, exactly pretty much where the Fed wants to be to taper. And we'll hear more about tapering coming on. So this is a really good indicator to see where they stand on the event that is going to occur during this late winter, which I think really now is moving into the spring territory to get everything set up and ready to go. But it seems like they're on the right path to do what they need to do, because they need this event to blame on another country, because the U.S. government, the Federal Reserve, do not want to be blamed for the economy collapsing at this time, and you're going to see the stock market, job loss, retail sales completely decimated by this first wave of this collapse. And we have to, and I know I keep saying this, but we have to remember the Fed already came out saying they want to increase quantitative easing by 50%, which I believe is going to be a lot more than that, because they understand that when this collapse hits, foreign nations, and China already gave us a signal, they will be selling the treasury bonds. Other foreign nations will be selling the treasury bonds. The Fed will have to pick up the slack, purchase these treasury bonds, and we understand that the real estate market will completely fall apart, and there'll be so many more foreclosures, and the Fed will have to increase it to buy up the toxic real estate, and they'll have to increase QE to have the banks pump in this money to bring the market, or at least try to bring the market back up to where it was. Now, in my other reports, I did report on the government where they are, and they need to find more money to sustain this debt. And we talked about this in the past, where the government is looking to have a tax-free internet sales, and this is going to be a thing of the past, where people can buy things online tax-free, because right now the Supreme Court on Monday declined to get involved in the state effort to force online retailers to charge tax, and this opens up the opportunity for Congress to pass a national legislation governing online sales tax. So when you purchase something, they would like to make a federal tax across the entire nation to collect more income, because the debt cannot be sustained. So we see an online tax happening. We see FACTA happening. We see the taxes in Obamacare. They are looking for money everywhere. Everywhere you are, they need to tax you. If you're trying to leave the country and handing in your passport, your U.S. passport, they have a bill introduced into Congress where they like to tax you 30% of your wealth before you leave the country. And this is all because the debt cannot be maintained. And right now, like I talked about, the Fed right now owns 1/3 of the entire U.S. bond market, and right now the total number, as in the weekly update, is 33.18%, which is up just from a week ago from 32.85%. Now, if the Fed keeps this up and continually purchases the Treasury bonds to the end of next year of 2014, the Fed will own pretty much half of the entire bond market. And if they keep this pace up, by 2018, they will own it all. They will own all the Treasury bonds. So you can see why they need to do something right now. And we understand that they just can't taper. They mention taper, the market falls. If the market falls, people look at the Fed and blame the Fed. They do not want this to happen, because again, they want to reset the system, and if they're blamed, nobody will want them in the system anymore. So they need this event to take all eyes off the U.S. government and the Fed, and this is why this is all being set up right now, because they will end up being the entire market. Right now they are on track to owning half of the Treasury bonds. Okay, now there was an article from the Economic Collapse blog that there are signs that we are near the peak of an absolutely massive stock market bubble. And we are totally in a stock market bubble. We're also in a treasury bond bubble. We're also in a student loan bubble. We're also in a derivatives bubble. We are here, and I'll read a couple of them here. Bob Shiller, one of the winners of this year's Nobel Prize for Economics, says that bubbles look like this, and that he is most worried about the boom in the U.S. stock market. Since the bottom of the market in 2009, the Dow has jumped 143%, the S&P 500 is up 165%, and the NASDAQ is now at 213%. This does not reflect the economic reality in any way, shape, or form. Market research firm Trim Tab says that the S&P 500 is very overpriced right now. And Graham Summers recently noted retail investors are buying stocks at a level not seen since the peak of the dot-com bubble back in 2000. In my reports previous, I reported on the insiders, the investment, the hedge funds were starting to dump their stocks, and retail investors were starting to pick up, and this is a sure sign of a bubble. These people who are in the retail market get in because they think the market's going up, 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 and up. These people are left holding the stocks while the market crashes and they lose everything. The insiders are getting out right now, and according to Tyler Durden of Zero Hedge, the U.S. stock market is repeating a pattern that we have seen many times before. According to him, we are experiencing a well-defined syndrome of overvalued, overbought, over-bullish, rising yield conditions that has appeared exclusively as speculative market peaks, including 1929, 1972, 1987, 2000, 2007, 2011, before a market loss of nearly 20% that was truncated by investor faith in a new round of monetary easing, and at 3 points in 2013, February, May, and today. We are seeing a huge bubble right now. The only players that were in the market were the banks, because they were getting pumped in tons, billions and billions of dollars, and that money was put back into the market to pump it up. Now it is the handoff. They are handing off the stock to retail investors in the real estate market. The hedge funds, the investors who bought in cash are trying to hand off all these homes to the speculators, the flippers, and the first-time buyers who are getting 100% finance, who think they're on their way to making money in the real estate investment arena. They will be holding all of this, and this is how bubbles are played out every single time. Okay, now in my past reports, the main purpose of disarming Americans is to remove the Constitution. And in my last report, or maybe 2 reports ago, I reported that New York is sending letters around stating that they need to confiscate your weapons because your weapon holds more than the certain amount of rounds required by law. And this was a law that was set up in New York after the Sandy Hook shooting. And right now, what is happening? A Canadian journalist earlier this year, Brian Lilly from Sun News, warned Americans during his broadcast that gun registration will lead to confiscation. And he described how they use this. Lilly described how the Canadian government systematically confiscated firearms from law-abiding citizens. First, they created a national gun registry to track the sales of firearms. 2, they passed laws that ban certain firearms. 3, they notify gun owners that they have 30 days to surrender their registered firearms to local police. We are seeing this happen right now. New York, California have these draconian laws in place. They are already starting the process of sending the letters around. Now, it's been very difficult for the federal government, and President Obama already has the executive orders set up to support the UN Arms Treaty and the Dianne Feinstein bill that is pending in the Senate. This will do the same thing as New York, and this will follow the same exact steps because they understand they need to get the weapons from the American people. And right now, Dianne Feinstein, they're making a push to do this, and we've seen many, many mass shootings in a short period of time. From August to now, we've seen many mass shootings, and there was even a hoax of a mass shooting to keep it fresh in everyone's mind in a prestigious college called Yale. So we can see what is happening right now, and Dianne Feinstein is out there again saying, let's finish the work we started. And She's saying, let's get the background checks on gun purchases to work. She's saying they do work, and let's push my bill forward so we can go around and confiscate everyone's weapons. And she went on to say, we know background checks work. Let's finish the job we started 20 years ago and finally make expanded background checks a reality in this country. She is now pushing her gun legislation even further. She wants it passed. They want the UN Arms Treaty passed. John Kerry already signed it. Obama said he will support it. They just needed to get through Senate. And how are they going to get it through the Senate? Well, we all know, by a false flag event. And the next one coming up is going to be horrific, deadly, bloody, something you have never seen before. And this is the only way at this time to get all of this legislation through and start the gun confiscation, because they understand the collapse is coming. And everyone, again, the collapse is not going to happen boom like this and martial law. It is going to be the first part. We're going to see the market drop. They're going to try to pump it up, convince everything that everything's getting better. In the meantime, they will have a false flag event that will allow them to start the background checks, to pass the legislation, to start the background checks, to start the gun confiscation. We will also be getting into war and striking these countries that used chemical weapons, a dirty nuke, and cyber attacks against the country. All of this is going to happen all at once, and people will not even realize that the collapse is happening at this time. It will look like the U.S. government is trying to fix what happened from the attack from another country. It will be blamed on them that this economic collapse is happening, and all of this is going to take place, but it's not going to be boom, martial law. It will happen, and it will happen slowly during this time. People won't even realize it's happening, except for you that are listening to me and other people who have been saying this, but the everyday person will not understand what is happening. They will believe that another country did this to us, that we are going to war, that we need to attack them because what they have done, and the government will come out saying that they need to confiscate people's weapons to keep them safe, and they'll make up a huge amount of stories, and they will spin this in a way that they want this spun. Okay, now there was a report of around 700,000 people or more on the U.S. watch list, and I've been talking about lists since I started this. DHS, NSA, they all have the list. They are tracking millions of Americans. They are making social profiles. They need to understand where the threat is. The threat to the government, the people who no longer want the government body and the central bankers making decisions for the people of the United States. So these people are on these lists. They are spying on Americans right now, and this is why this is coming out right now. You have no idea if you're on the list. You don't know how to get off the list. Chris Christie took it a step further in New Jersey. He's decided anyone that is on the list cannot get a gun permit, but you don't know if you're on the list, you don't know how to get off the list, but you're just denied a gun permit so you cannot have a weapon. And this is how he is using this list. Now, we understand the NSA spies on everyone. Well, right now there is a directive, James Clapper's directive fires up NSPD 51, providing Department of Homeland Security with state authority and the ability to spy on every single person during some type of catastrophic event. And that could be a nuclear weapon detonation here. It could be martial law. And in the unlikely event there is a nuclear war or some other catastrophic event, a directive issued by the Director of the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, will make sure the NSA still listens in on your calls. And of course, if there is phone calls and internet, they still have the ability to listen in and spy on everyone. And this directive, issued on November 12th, makes certain the president, the vice president, the statutory successors, and other national leaders, as appropriate, are provided with timely, insightful, objective, and relevant national intelligence wherever they are located in all conditions. So even if there is something happening, like we know that something is going to happen, like a false flag event, the government will still spy on you. Okay. Now, in a leaked recording, al-Sisi says Egypt institutions completely collapsed. And people keep asking al-Sisi in Egypt, how's the government performing? And what he is saying is that the state institutions have collapsed, the presidency has been undermined, the constitution suspended, the parliament dissolved, the interior ministry dealt a heavy blow, and the judiciary has been questioned. And right now, there is no government body or form or court of law. Everything has been suspended. It's pretty much martial law over there in Egypt. And right now, what we're seeing over in Egypt, we understand that they've passed a law which prohibits people from protesting. And right now in Egypt, people are now protesting against the law that prohibits them from protesting. And this is in the city of Alexandria, and they have fired tear gas at large crowds of protesting and demanding that they get rid of this new law. And this law is the same type of law that other countries are using to prohibit protesting. We have it here in the United States, that if there's a government official, you are not allowed to protest. In Japan, there's a secrecy and a law that prohibits people from protesting. In Egypt, we see this, and many other countries are starting to enact these type of laws. And why are they enacting these laws? Because they understand there is a huge economic collapse. They understand there will be rioting. They understand that they do not want people protesting against the government officials, and it allows them to arrest you by making it legal because of this law. But again, in the United States, we have the Bill of Rights, and it allows us to protest and talk out against our government. So the law that they enacted and passed is completely null and void according to the Constitution. Now, we understand that Ukraine decided not to go with the EU because they saw, the Eurozone heavily in debt, the Eurozone a huge recession / depression, unemployment very high, and they decided to go with Russia. Now we're seeing riots and protesting, people very upset that they went with Russia instead of the EU, and right now Putin is out there saying that he sees this, that the Ukraine opposition is either not in control of the protest, or it may serve as a cover-up for extremist activities. And he's saying that that this rioting and what he sees in the street has nothing to do with the Ukraine and EU deal, but rather it's an attempt by the opposition to undermine the country's legitimate government. And he says that this is being done by outside forces, just like in Syria, trying to override the Syrian government. And, this is what he is seeing right now. And he also went on to say that nobody really seems to be concerned about the actual details of the Ukraine-EU agreement, and they aren't even specifying the things that they want changed. So this is what makes him think that this is not a real uprising, that this is controlled, because again, the EU, the central bankers, need more countries into the system to keep the system operating, to issue more debt. And this, again, this goes along with Syria, Iran, the Ukraine, and many other countries that are not going into the EU or using the US dollar. And this is a huge, huge problem, because they need to issue more debt to keep the system going. Now, out in Japan, citizens well, let me just go back. In my past reports, I explained that Japan has created a secrecy bill, and they're going to keep certain things secret from the people in Japan. And right now, the Liberal Democratic Party secretary has said that citizens demonstrating against the controversial state secrets bill are committing an act of terrorism if they protest in the street and do not agree with the government. So we can see where all this is heading, and we see this happening in many different countries, and and a lot of the people in these countries are starting to speak out about this, and now the government is starting to put pressure on the people, saying that you're a terrorist. They are starting to push back, and as more of these people rise up, we're going to see the government pushing people back down. And this is how revolutions, this is how civil wars happen, and this is how governments are toppled. And we've seen many, many governments toppled, and we're starting to see this in many, many different countries right now. We do understand that out in Asia right now, the United States is pushing and encircling China, getting ready for World War III. They have already sent over their self-destroyer. They're setting up the bases around, and now the U.S. sends a new submarine hunting jet to Japan. Amid the East Asia tensions, the U.S. Navy's first advanced P-8 Poseidon patrol aircraft has arrived in Japan, and the start of a deployment that will upgrade America's ability to hunt submarines and other vessels in seas close to China. And this is packed with the latest radar equipment and armed with torpedoes and anti-ship missiles. The P-8 is able to fly further and stay out on missions longer than the P-3. So we can see what is happening right now. China is building up their military assets in the Asia Pacific, and the U.S., Japan are building up their military assets, because eventually tensions will rise even further, and eventually a false flag event will occur to get us into the next war. And right now, the U.S. panel suggests punishing China for continued large-scale economic espionage activities. And this was mentioned before, but they reconvened, and they really want to impose sanctions on China. A U.S. panel raised the specter of sanctions against China, warning Congress that Beijing has not contained its rampant spying on American interests, and it's a major national security concern. The U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission, in its annual report, also flagged China's massive increase in military spending as a worry, citing naval expansion as a threat of Americans' role in Asia. The report accused China of directing and executing a large-scale cyber espionage campaign, penetrating the U.S. government and private industries. And the wide-ranging report warned that China, which has steadily ramped up its military budget as its economy soared to the world's second largest, may soon challenge U.S. forces' dominant role in Asia. And we can see this all happening. We can see the picture of why this is happening, because China has already signaled that it doesn't see the benefit holding U.S. dollar or treasury bonds, and we can see they are making deals all across Europe. They have just made a trade deal with Britain, the U.K., Cameron, and they are making deals everywhere. We see the deal in Kenya, where they are the clearinghouse for the yuan. The yuan now will be used to sell oil, and they are making deals with North Korea, Russia, Iran, Syria, Brazil, India. They're making deals, Australia, everywhere, because they understand they are making a run to be the next reserve currency of the world. Now, the U.S. understands they are losing control in the Middle East. Egypt is looking towards Russia, purchasing military assets from Russia, looking to get aid from Russia. So right now, the U.S. Navy plans expansion in Bahrain. The U.S. Navy is confirming its footprint in the Arabian Gulf by reinforcing its presence through short and long-term plans. And right now, they are sending combat ships and they are expected to arrive in Bahrain by 2018 with a rotational cruise. Besides the new equipment, more crew and families will be coming to Bahrain. Construction is now underway to build more infrastructure and capacity to support additional units on the base, home to the U.S. Fifth Fleet. So everyone is making their stand. They are placing their military assets where they need them, and World War III is going to go on for quite a while. Just look back and look how long World War II went on. Again, it's not going to break out in one instance and the whole world will be fighting. It will happen in small areas. It will spread. Other countries will get involved, and this is going to go on for years. Right now, Israel is trying to get something started with Syria. Israel is out there saying that the Israeli military says its troops have come under attack from Syria, and they fired back in retaliation. And the military says a mortar round landed on the Israeli side of the frontier Monday, and then gunfire targeted at Israeli patrols. The troops returned fire toward their attackers in Syria. And let's see what else here. General Michael Hayden said he's okay with letting the 6-month temporary deal with the country of Iran to go forward, but we should be truthful, he said. We have accepted Iranians' uranium enrichment deal, and right now the Iranians are far too close to a nuclear weapon, he said. We have hit the pause button. Now we've got to negotiate hitting the delete button with them. At the end of the day, Hayden said, Iran's going to be a nuclear threshold state. This is going to be a catastrophic safety concern and the security of the American nation. So we can see what is happening right now. They are hoping to put the pause button on Iran so they do not go further with developing any type of nuclear weapon, because it will be much more difficult to get into Iran if they are a complete nuclear power with a nuclear weapon like North Korea. Syria does not have a nuclear weapon, and this is why they're able, and they still want to get into Syria. And again, they need to still get into these countries to put them on the US dollar, because if they do not do this, the collapse of the dollar will happen much sooner than they want. Now, we understand that this next event, this false flag event, that will be coming very soon, is going to consist of a cyber attack. It's going to consist of probably a chemical weapon attack and a dirty nuke attack, and this is going to be widespread across the United States. And we have to remember what Janet Napolitano told us, that not if but when a cyber attack hits the United States. Now, DHS is supposed to be handling and protecting all government offices and businesses against, and financial institutions, of course, against cyber attacks. And this is their job. They've taken on this responsibility as protecting the United States from terrorist attacks. But don't you find it strange and interesting that the Department of Homeland Security has failed to follow many of its own cybersecurity policies, exposing the agency's network to unnecessary risks, according to the federal auditors? So what does this tell us? This tells us that DHS is in no way protecting the infrastructure of financial institutions, power, energy grid, from any type of cyber attack. And this is why Janet Napolitano is so sure that there will be a cyber attack. And this goes on to say that an Inspector General's report last month faulted the department for using outdated security controls and internet connections that are not verified as trustworthy, as well as for not reviewing its top-secret information systems for vulnerabilities. This report shows major gaps in DHS's own cybersecurity, including some of the most basic protections that would be obvious to a 13-year-old with a laptop. So this just goes to show you they do not have any interest in protecting the United States from a cyber attack. Actually, the false flag event will come from the inside, and they will use this to go and attack and to strike a country outside of the United States, and this will be used as the false flag event. And we can see how this is all being put together right now, and just from this one report that has just come out. And there is another report that has just come out, and we can see why there could be glitches in the NASDAQ. Cyber attack against the Chicago Mercantile, which they just told us about, that happened back in July. Other glitches that are happening with Amazon, with Vine, with Netflix. Right now, there is a malware program. It is so malicious and so powerful, everyday virus protection will not protect you. It is called the NeverQuest Trojan. And what this does, it says it can attack any bank in any country. It can attack any financial institution, including the stock market. And there is nothing to stop it. The Trojan has already targeted 28 sites, including Fidelity Investments. The NeverQuest can also use information in accounts to play the stock market. It hides on malicious sites and infects computers to steal logon details. A team of Russian cybercriminals have created a computer virus so sophisticated it can steal the money from any bank account in any country. And it can hide dormant on any system and be called upon when they want it to do what they want it to do. So, we see strange glitches happening, and this just happened in the last couple of months. We've seen that the Chicago Mercantile was cyber attacked. We see that they don't know what the damage is in any of these systems. We actually seen the stock exchange have some type of glitch happen in the past couple of days. And this is so advanced right now and so damaging that these banks, the stock market, the NASDAQ, won't even know what hit it. And this is how they are setting up for the next false flag event. Because when this hits, the banks will close down. The banks will not allow you to withdraw any money. Money will be missing from the accounts. Capital controls will be in effect. The stock market will completely crash. And we can see how this is all playing in now. We can see what is about to happen. Right now, they will not release the other 28 major websites because they are afraid of letting this information out, because these are highly sensitive sites and systems. And this is what they're saying right now. Okay, what else is going on here? Right now, Iran, Israel, and in Israel and Saudi Arabia, they are plotting a new computer worm to sabotage their nuclear program, just like Stuxnet. And right now, what it says now, Saudi spy agency Mossad last week hashed out a proposal for production of a malware worse than Stuxnet. And the Israel and Saudi Arabia are reportedly collaborating to create a new destructive computer worm to spy on and destroy the software structure of Iran's nuclear program. So we are seeing all of this happen right now, because when this major event hit, it is going to be huge. And we have Dianne Feinstein and Mike Rogers out there saying that the U.S. is in great danger. And again, this is all playing up to the false flag event. The terrorist attack is going to be much worse than September 11th, and I agree with them. They are going to use this false flag event, and they're going to make it much, much worse than September 11th. And right now they're saying that they have less of the ability to prevent such aggression by Islamist radicals. And Dianne Feinstein said, I think terror is up worldwide. The statistics indicate that that the terrorists are roaming the country. The fatalities are way up. The numbers are way up. There are new bombs, very big bombs, and this is her saying this, not me. Trucks being reinforced for those bombs. There are bombs that go through magnetic meters. The bomb makers are still alive. There are more groups than ever. And this is Dianne Feinstein saying all these different quotes. And Mike Rogers is out there, and he is saying that terrorists are now focusing on smaller events, making it more difficult for the intelligence community to detect plots against American targets. The threat level has never been more diverse than it is today, and that's one of the bigger concerns that we have, and why we both would agree that the threat is higher today, and we are probably less safe. So you're saying that all of this patting down in the airports, spying on every single American, all of this can't even keep us safe against these terrorists. So all of this was a complete waste of time. Is that what they're trying to tell us? Now, there is a report out there from the UN, and it cites that the evidence has been uncovered in Syria that implicates President Assad and members of his entourage in war crimes and crimes against humanity that are unbelievable. And this is what the UN report states. A UN Commission of Inquiry into Human Rights Violations in Syria has produced massive evidence of very serious crimes, war crimes, crimes against humanity, she said, adding that the evidence indicates responsibility at the highest level of government, including the head of state. The names remain sealed until I am requested to furnish them to credible investigation, Pillay told reporters in Geneva, adding that it could be a national investigation or international investigation. The scale of viciousness of the abuses being perpetrated by elements on both sides almost defies belief. And this could be used as a backdoor approach to get into Syria to oust Assad. And I just want to bring us back into time here, where we look at Gaddafi. UN Human Rights Commission, headed by Sharif, I'm going to try to pronounce the name, Bassouni, has found that Gaddafi's regime guilty of war crimes, mainly consisting of attacks by Gaddafi forces on dissident populations, may have killed 10 to 15,000 people. Gaddafi forces have used heavy weapons against civilian non-combatants and have made people disappear, have engaged in torture. The commission also found war crimes on a lesser scale among the rebel forces. This report, back when Gaddafi was in power, is the same type of report that is coming out now against Assad. And what happened during that time? Well, the UN forces, the NATO forces, went in and removed Gaddafi from power. They removed the puppet government and they put a puppet regime in Libya and placed the natural resources back on the US dollar as the reserve currency. And we can see the same thing happening right now. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.